Hey, church family. I wanted to take this opportunity to present you with another word of encouragement as we prepare to celebrate the birth of our Savior, Jesus. Now, it's Christmas Eve, and while many Christians are preparing to celebrate the birth of our Savior with others in our fellowship of faith, there are still many who have been convinced that it's too dangerous. It's still too dangerous for us to go and gather together with others in our Christian congregation. Now, as I think back to the beginning of this pandemic, as we look back to March, I remember we were presented with a projected model which assured us that the novel coronavirus was going to claim the lives of 2.2 million Americans. It was then March the 16th. That's when the CDC encouraged America to shut everything down and to shut it down for 15 days in order to slow the spread of this virus. We were then encouraged to lock down for yet another month in order to flatten the curve. And then once that month was over, we were forced to lock down for 6 more months as we waited for treatments and vaccines. And so, treatments came out and they said all these treatments are bad. And then they stalled the release of the vaccine until after the election because, reasons. And now that the vaccine has been released, well, now the experts, the ones who initially promoted the faulty Imperial College model, these same experts are now assuring us that, we got to continue locking down. We got to continue wearing the mask. We have to continue engaging in social distancing because, the new normal and all. Now, remember, they initially convinced us to start wearing masks and sheltering in place because of that Imperial College model, which again assured us that the novel coronavirus is going to claim the lives of 2.2 million Americans. And according to the prediction of that model, most of us were filled with fear and we were ready to give up all of our liberties just for a little safety. Well, thankfully, the Imperial College model was completely wrong and by orders of magnitude. And listen, my heart breaks for every family who has lost a loved one this year after succumbing to the novel coronavirus. My prayers are with those who are currently coping with the loss of a family member or a friend after contracting the coronavirus. At the same time, though, listen, it's also important for us to realize that we now have a better understanding than we did back in March. We now have a better understanding of which of us will easily recover from this virus and who ought to continue sheltering in place. As we look back to March, that's when we were presented with that faulty model and we had limited information about the effects of this infection. But now here we are, 10 months later. And we know now that the Imperial College model was way off. And not only that, but we also know which members of our society should continue sheltering in place. We know that those who are under the age of 70 and who are reasonably healthy, we have a 99.6% chance of surviving this virus. Not only that, but we also know that there are wonderful treatments that have been extremely effective for many Americans. The most promising and popular antiviral drug currently being used to treat COVID-19 is remdesivir, and there's also an experimental monoclonal antibody treatment known as Regeneron. This is what was given to President Trump to help him recover. And let's not forget about the notorious hydroxychloroquine, which has actually helped many people recover when given early at low doses. Without debate, there are more treatments today than there were back in March, and as a result, many people recover from this virus. Finally, I just want to remind you, it was back in March when we were warned about the asymptomatic carriers who were supposed to be silent spreaders. Now, if this is something that you're still worried about, then I would direct your attention to the recent research which was published in the Journal of the American Medical Association. According to their meta-analysis of 54 different scientific studies, those who are infected with COVID-19 and yet have no symptoms of the virus, or in other words, they're asymptomatic, they're 25 times less likely to spread the virus than those who have symptoms. And while it's still possible for an asymptomatic carrier to spread the virus, it's just not as likely as we were once told. With all that being the case, I'm happy to tell you, the doors of our church are open for tonight's Christmas Eve service. And while I encourage those who have symptoms like a fever or maybe the loss of taste, if you have certain symptoms of the coronavirus, stay home, watch online. But I also encourage those of us who are healthy to join us. Come on out to Calvary South Austin tonight as we gather together to sing the praises of our Savior. If you still feel the need to shelter in place, then you can join us online right here at calvarysouthaustin.com. The service will start streaming at 6 p.m. But listen, I hope to see you tonight as we worship our Savior and celebrate the birth of Jesus Christ. If you're able to, join us tonight at 6 p.m. right here at Calvary South Austin. And as always, I encourage you, let's continue fighting the good fight of faith, all for the glory of God.